stories and dreams. I hear stories and dreams of my coaching clients every day. They tell me about the stories that brought them to today, and also their dreams and aspirations for the future. They share with me their dreams about starting new companies, growing their companies, and advancing in leadership. I watch them as they are glowing in front of me. Their eyes are shining, they're smiling, they're filled with energy as they're describing their dream of the future. But then, something happens. And it seems that it's every time. Their energy starts going down. And they're not as enthusiastic as they tell me about all the thoughts and feelings that they have on why they should not pursue those dreams. They share their fear of failure, their worries of being judged, and their fear of not being perceived as perfect. I listen to them, and I feel that they're holding a mirror that's reflecting my own fears and insecurities. I used to think that it's just me, walking around with limitations of the fear of making mistakes and the worry of being judged because of my background in the Middle East. But the more I coached, the more I led teams, I was always shocked to realize that I'm not the only one. It just seems that almost everybody I get in touch with has the same issues. And these fears are stopping them from being creative, from advancing, from expanding their potential, and from making their dreams come true. Let me tell you a story. I'm going to take you to the Middle East, to Jordan, to a kitchen, to my grandmother's kitchen. It's always warm because she's always baking something in the oven. Spinach pies and cheese pies and meat pies, and you can smell all of this fresh aroma with the spices that are filling the air. In the background, there's this old radio that's playing Middle Eastern songs that makes me want to dance. I always loved spending time with my grandmother in her kitchen. We played all kinds of fun games. But that day, it was different. I was 5 years old, and it was a day when we were going to arrange flowers in a glass vase. My grandmother wasn't herself. She was so much more serious than usual. As we were sitting, trying to put the flowers and arrange them, she held the glass vase, and she said, "Do you see this glass vase? A girl is just like the perfect glass vase. If it gets cracked for any reason, you can never fix it or glue it back. It will always be seen as cracked." And who would want a cracked vase? That's the one that she told me we would throw in the trash. I looked at her and I was absolutely terrified. I didn't understand anything that she was saying. But then years later, I learned what my grandmother meant is that the Middle Eastern girl, the vase is like a Middle Eastern girl's reputation. And I should always be perfect. I should be perceived as a perfect glass vase. Otherwise, I would not be accepted in my community. I should always be perfect and worry of maintaining my perfect image. This story has been passed down for generations, from my great-grandmother to my grandmother to my mother and then to me. And it became an overwhelming obstacle in my life. How would I aspire to discover my identity, create self-worth, and discover who I am if I am always afraid of keeping a perfect image if I'm always expected to be a person that I'm not. But I followed all of that. I did exactly what was expected of me. And when I was 19 years old, I got engaged through a family introduction to the most eligible bachelor in the community. And that was a sign that I am perceived with a perfect vase. My parents were thrilled. His mom was the one who arranged the introduction. She saw me when I was 16 years old. I came from school with my brown uniform, and that was the day that she was visiting my mom, but she decided that I am going to become the wife of her son. And 3 years later, she waited until I grew up, right? 3 years later, she came and she introduced us, we got married, and we moved together to San Diego, California to follow his career aspirations. I thought that with this marriage and the move to the US, I could finally be allowed to discover my identity and be respected for who I truly am, far away from the culture. But to my shock, the expectations never left. They were actually bigger. And I was expected to do more and more to maintain the perfect image and to live in fear. But I accepted that. I didn't know any better. I didn't know how to live. I couldn't survive on my own. But years later, I found that I was struggling. I was feeling empty, unhappy, and lost. I started to question my own identity and purpose in life, but I couldn't find any satisfying answer. And that's when I got in depression. My challenge with the depression was that I thought I have no choice. I was terrified of staying in that relationship, that I felt living in it like a property. I was expected to just serve him and his family. I wasn't even allowed to speak to my parents other than 20 minutes a week. And I had somebody sitting next to me, so I couldn't even speak freely to my mom. I wasn't allowed to have friends. I wasn't allowed to leave without permission. That was my life. So my challenge was I was afraid of continuing to live that life because I felt that I was miserable and it was not going to get any better. But I was also afraid to leave. I was afraid of the consequences. I was afraid of how my family are going to react. I knew that most likely they would disown me. I knew that it would be absolutely horrible, that I'm not going to be able to do it on my own. So as I was feeling these horrible feelings of fear of staying and fear of leaving, my intuition kept telling me, feel the fear and take action anyway. So I shut it off. I was so terrified to even consider taking action. And the situation got worse, and my voice got louder, and it kept saying, feel the fear and take action anyway. It got to a point where it was so loud, I couldn't stay. And I remember one day I woke up in my main depression, so depressed to even get out of bed, and all I had energy to do is just lay and just stare at the ceiling. I felt that my life was over. There was nothing to live for. And I wasn't even 25 at that time. And that was the moment that I decided that I'm going to feel the fear and I'm going to take action anyway. I packed and I left. I went to bed that night knowing that I cracked the vase. And as terrified as I was, I knew that I made the right choice. I also knew that the consequences would be harsh, but I didn't realize how much worse they turned out to be. Not only did my family disown me, but one attempted to have me killed to save the honor of the family. Here, divorce is normal in the US. The statistics, it's if you're not happy, you leave. In the Middle East, you don't. at least when I was growing up, especially as a woman leaving her husband, that is total shame to the family. And if you're wondering who is the person who has attempted to kill me and who's been trying for the last 16 years, that's my own dad. Because he feels that I brought shame to the family, and blood, my blood, shedding it would be the only way to clear that shame. So I needed to move on. I couldn't live in the past anymore. I needed to create a new story, a story of empowerment, a story of self-discovery. I just didn't know how to do that. I was barely surviving day by day. Not just emotionally difficult, it was financially difficult. I was barely able to manage to survive. But it was important for me to continue to move forward. And my only way that I knew of in order to move forward was with education. So I enrolled at the University of San Diego. In the first semester, one of my professors reached out to me and encouraged me to run for the president of the student organization. Here I am, totally lost, barely surviving, taking classes, working full-time. So in his situation, he saw me as if I'm like any other student. But I wasn't. I may have looked okay in the outside. I may have looked in my suit and my clean clothes and participating in the class, but I was broken inside, absolutely broken, as if I was living two different identities. So I decided to say, no, I can't run for the student to become the president of the student organization. And I honestly don't know why, but he didn't give up. He kept following after me. Every time he saw me, he would tell me that he thinks I should become the president. Until today, I don't know why he thought I should become the president. So to get him away from me, I said, okay, I will do it, knowing that most likely the other students are not going to vote for me. Why would they vote for me? I have no clue. So I ran. And to my surprise, I got elected. I didn't realize at that moment that a whole new journey is about to start, a journey of my own leadership transformation. So, just less than a year later, I decided to start applying for jobs. I was working full-time, going to school full-time, and president of the student organization, and I just wanted to practice interviewing skills. Every single company I applied for, they gave me an offer, including IBM, to their leadership development program. It's a 2-year program that they only choose 8 graduates a year to be enrolled in that program. I honestly, when I got the call, which by the way, they called me at 5 a.m. in the morning because I was in San Diego and their headquarters is in New York, I thought it was the world is about to end, but apparently the world just started. And I got the offer to join that program. So I had to expedite my graduation, and I kept asking myself, oh my goodness, what are they thinking? Why would they even try to hire me? I was so terrified. Terrified of leaving San Diego, terrified of leaving the past behind, terrified of proving myself in this big company, terrified of maybe I would fail, maybe I'm not gonna do well, maybe who knows what, all the fears that I was living with. But anyways, the same intuition kept telling me, feel the fear and take action anyway. And I did. And that's when the world opened up for me. I got to work and travel around the world with IBM. I lived in Japan for over a year. I got to work on projects with them at the United Nations in South Africa. I got to lead global teams and work with the most amazing executives that I got to learn from them, who mentored me and believed in me. I still felt so terrified the entire time. And every day I would wake up, I would remind myself to feel the fear and to take action anyway. And that's when I started meeting all kinds of people from around the world, and I would hear their stories of them telling me about their fears and their insecurities and why they believe they shouldn't apply for a job because most likely they're going to be rejected. So maybe they say, maybe we should just save the embarrassment. Or I would hear women telling me, oh, maybe I shouldn't apply for a job because I gained weight, a lot of weight recently. What if the hiring committee thinks that I'm not qualified because of that? And I heard all kinds of stories, and I kept telling them, fear will always be here, but feel the fear and take action anyway. The messages became so much more powerful, especially in the last 3 years when I gave my TEDx here at LSU. And all kinds of people from around the world would send me messages telling me about how they related to my story. Because in the TEDx, I talked about my vase story. Men and women, all kinds of ages, different religion, different professions, different everything, resonated with the message of being perfect, of being afraid constantly of making mistakes, worried of being judged, and aspiring to be perfect, which in many situations, they end up losing themselves in the process. Just like I lost myself in the past before I was determined to rediscover it. So I tell them, feel the fear and take action anyway. So I saw women that would be terrified of public speaking, that felt the fear and took action, that presented to executives and ended up getting a promotion. I saw all kinds of amazing messages of people that were so scared of taking the next step, of getting out of a bad business partnership, of getting into amazing opportunities that otherwise they wouldn't do because they're afraid, but they did them. And I saw them grow and grow. And it was absolutely fulfilling. And that's when I decided that it is time for me to resign from IBM and do this full time. So for the last 2 years, I am on my own. And you may think, wow, she is so courageous. Trust me, I am so terrified every single day. I wake up terrified. I terrify myself with all the risks that I take. But I feel the fear and I take action anyway. So I started my company. And now I'm growing it to help people discover their potential. And not just discover it, but also expand it, to take action, to believe in themselves, to grow in business, to become leaders, to become business owners, and to be the people that we are meant to be. Last Monday, I woke up with the worst nightmare. Do you know those nightmares when you wake up, like that's the last thing you dream of in the morning? I think I woke up before 6 and it just like messes you up all day. Yeah, I had one of those. I felt nauseous all day. And the dream was interesting. I haven't had it for 16 years since I crashed my vase and since I left that marriage. That I was at the moment where I was trying to make the decision. It was the moment where I felt so terrified of staying, but also so terrified from leaving. I got a taste, a reminder of how horrible it is. It's not easy making decisions. It's not easy moving on and making choices to make a better life. But it's so necessary because I kept asking myself all day, what is the purpose of this dream? Like, there's no reason for me to have this dream. But now I realize there is a purpose. Because I realized that if I didn't take a risk, if I didn't believe in myself, if I didn't feel the fear, I would be living that nightmare today. I would be miserable. But instead, I am living my dream. I am here with you today, speaking with you, hopefully inspiring you to feel your fears and to take action anyways. So to my grandmother, the pure, perfect glass represents my honor and my reputation. But to me, it represents the unrealistic limitations that I choose not to obey. I look around the room and I wonder, what vases are you living with? Who told you not to follow your dreams? Who told you not to be yourself? What is holding you back? Is it your culture, a job, a relationship, or is it you? Are you living with the expectations to protect your glass vase? Each one of us have a choice. We can continue to live in fear and keep the glass vase perfect and then pass it to the next generation and expect the same thing from them, or simply feel the fear and take action anyway. Simply smash it. Smash it into a million pieces. Smash it with all the fear, the worry, and the shame that it represents. What would you choose?